Half moon can be a very difficult pose for your students to access. People are not accustomed to tipping and opening and balancing in this way. It's just a lot going on in a little bit of an odd position for the body. So I want to share with you some tips to help make this pose more accessible and more functional for your students as well, so that more people are able to get the benefits from this pose, and you're also able to add a lot of variety and context into the way that you teach it, so it's much more supportive and still challenging for those who do find this pose quite accessible for their bodies. Now, I'm going to share a few things with you, but the very first thing that I want to mention is the way that we get our students into the pose. And what I mean is we are often having them go from a position where the hand is down low, either it's on the ground or maybe it's up on a block, and then we're having them open up. Now, when the body is down that low, unless someone has very, very short legs and very, very long arms, it's going to be difficult for them to lift up against gravity to rotate and get that balance. So the very first thing that I suggest is that you at least offer this alternative way to get into this balancing pose. So instead of having your students go from, again, the hand down on the ground or the hand on a block, where the torso is oftentimes lower than the level of the hips, you get them to start lifted. So either you're getting them to start just a little bit above that position, or you're getting them to start from upright totally. Those are two really great options that are going to make half moon so much more accessible for your students to get the stability into this position. And that's the other component of this that I mentioned, the functionality. So when you have people that are down low, whether the hand is down onto the ground or the hand is up on a block, generally what's happening in the torso here, if someone needs the hand down here, then there's a lot of rounding that's happening just to even get down there, particularly because if someone doesn't have the hamstring availability, then they are going to be rounding into their body to come down here, because to straighten out like this means there's a huge tug on the hamstring. That's just not working for a lot of people. So when they're down here, not only is it difficult to raise up against gravity and stay in that balance, but there's also not a lot of hip joint stability that they can gain because their range is too deep. The range of flexibility that they have to be in to touch the hand to the ground or to touch the hand to the block puts them in a position of weakness. And so the joint is not very stable in this area when they go into that position of half moon. So it just makes so much more sense to raise the body up, to not even have the hand touching onto the ground or onto a block, have the torso lifted at least above that parallel line, or to come all the way upright. Now, the other thing that you can get your students to do is to have the hand on the thigh here, and they can use a little bit of pressing energy to support the extension of the spine, which helps to create some tension, like a tight rope wire. So when someone walks on a tightrope wire, in order for them to balance on it, it has to be taut. It can't be super slack. So that's kind of the same concept here. Pressing through the hand can help to lengthen the torso, which gives a bit more dynamic energy output to allow for the balance to happen. So that's the very first thing, is to reposition the way you're getting your students to enter into the balance. So an example of that is pressing the hand onto the thigh like I already showed, and keeping the torso upright, and then moving into the balance this way. Now there's probably a couple of things that you're looking at going, oh, but you're bending your knee, and oh, you're starting with your hips open already. Yes, I'm going to get to those things. So as I said, hand pressing on the knee, or in the very least, you can have the torso lower and just not below that parallel line. Then you're getting your students to come into a lift of the leg, and that hip rotation can happen at various times. So let's get into the balancing leg positioning. So you can see I have a bend in my standing knee when I do it. Now, whether you have the instructions for your students to have the knee micro bend or you have the leg straight, it doesn't matter so much. What matters is that the leg is responsive to be able to keep a student upright. So sometimes the leg is going to straighten a little bit more to be responsive. Sometimes the leg is going to bend a little bit more to be responsive. The best starting position is a bent knee, and then the leg can kind of move and respond in accordance with how the student needs to recalibrate their balance. So that is another really important component. Now let's go to this hip positioning. As you saw me do, I was starting in an externally rotated hip position because this can be very difficult for people in this position to go from here to then go into here. However, because you're changing the starting position, you're starting your students not down below this parallel line of the hips and the leg, but you're starting it above it or even higher, then it is much more accessible to get your students to start with the hips parallel and then get them to lift the leg and tip forward, and then get them to explore externally rotating. So having the body raised higher is so much more accessible and just really allows your students to tune in to the structural stability of the hips as they enter into the pose. So either you're starting from that parallel position, you're getting them to tip into the balance, then you're getting them to open, or, as I was showing previously, you're getting them to open and externally rotate the hip. I like to place the hand here just kind of as an opening through the torso as well. So the hand, fingertips towards the hip, there's an external rotation. I'm pressing here, there's a tip of the weight forward, and then the leg begins to lift. Maybe the hand slides down a little bit, the leg here, and you're having that external rotation established before you go ahead and you lift the leg up. So two options that you can play with. But again, they're both stemming from starting the torso higher rather than lower. Now there's two more things that I want to share with you. Now you might have noticed, as I already mentioned, this kind of arm positioning. I know a lot of times with Half Moon we're doing this kind of thing. This is generally where people are losing the balance. So there's two things that are tied into this. The first thing is the shoulder positioning, the arm positioning. So when we get into this type of movement here, as soon as people start to open, the body weight tips excessively to the pinky toe side of the supporting leg. So you can encourage your students to press the big toe side down. That is one important thing that you can cue. Now, in addition to that, as I'm talking about the arms and the shoulders here, we really want to be able to support our students in finding the rotation of the upper body as well as the lower body, potentially before they tip into the balance. And that's why I love starting with this kind of thing, okay? And again, the hand can be here, the hand can be here. So you're pulling that elbow back like the bow and arrow, tipping the weight forward, and then just gradually beginning to come into that half moon. And then maybe from there, you're having your students straighten that arm and open it up. This allows for the establishment of the upper body to occur prior to the tipping, which allows for the balance to just be much more achievable, accessible, and maintainable. And to be honest, I don't even really open up the arms half of the time because again, as the arms open, that's going to be even more body weight shifting. So you'd want to cue again, hey, everybody, the tendency is as you open the arms for the weight to shift excessively to the pinky toe side of your balancing leg. So press your big toe down. That's a cue that you would want to use. Now, there's nothing wrong with just keeping the arms in this kind of bow and arrow position and having that be the balance. Now, the final thing that I want to share with you here is the eye gaze. Now, if we get our students to move the gaze all in one go, what do you think is going to happen? You've seen it before. Boom, fall over. So the final thing I want to share with you to help your students in this pose is to move the eyes in very small increments. So they're not just going from 0 to 100, but they're actually moving just a few inches over to the side where they might want to take the gaze. So it's little by little by little. And each time they move the gaze, they're finding a pause to allow their body to recalibrate. So they go a little bit over and then they pause, a little bit over and pause, a little bit over and pause, and a little bit over, and they're continuously moving in just small little increments. These tips are really helpful to make this pose more functional, more accessible, and just bring more dynamic variety to support your students so they are finding that there is just a much more cohesive relationship that they have with this pose instead of feeling that frustration that often comes with doing half moon. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure you like it and subscribe to my channel for more updates like this. And if you are a teacher that is looking for more support to improve your classes, enhance them for better functionality, accessibility, sustainability, empowerment for your students, I'd love to talk with you and see how I might be able to help you do that. Click the link below to book a call with me and we can chat and see what some options might be.